We both welcome you all to a webinar on strategic use of web tools. We both are delighted to have you with all your time that you have. Yeah, I'm so sorry, there was an error. Yeah, good evening, dear educators. I, Kaushal Sen and Varun, we both welcome you today to this webinar, Strategic Use of Web Tools. We recently conducted a certification program on Sway, OneNote, PowerPoint, and I hope that you all are engrossed in completing the assignments. So we thought of bringing a small and a simple webinar for you where we'll be talking about strategic use of web tools. But before we move ahead, we have a quick set of rules that we call the ground rules. As you all know, we request each one of you to keep your mic on mute and video off. This will help you give a better experience throughout the session. Participants will be muted during the session, and we request you to keep your mics on mute. Otherwise, we'll be left with no other option but to remove you from the session, which we do not want. We also suggest you to type in your questions in the chat box. If you are unable to use the chat box, there is an option on Microsoft Teams called the hand raise option. We request you to use that for any queries and glitches. We will be happy to answer all your questions, but at the end of the session. So we request you to keep your questions reserved with you. And at the end of the session, we'll have a question answer session. And during that, you can pose your questions. Also, we would request if you have any technical glitch, please stay calm. Do not open your mic. It won't help you, but rather staying calm will help you. And the most important rule, fill the feedback form after the session. So we'll be blinking it on the screen, and also Varun will be putting it on the chat box. So either ways, you take a screenshot or you click the link and fill in the feedback form. We take the feedback very seriously, and on the basis of these feedback, we bring out new sessions for all of you. And also it is a way to connect with you. So we request each one of you to fill in the feedback form at the end of the session. Moving ahead, the webinar is brought to you by Teacherr Redefining Education. And as I always say in all the sessions, you have to observe the spelling of teacher. It has an extra R. For them, it is redefining education. But for me, I consider it a repository to connect with fellow educators. In the past few months, we have connected with a lot of educators, change a lot of ideas and resources based on the assignments. A lot of resources are there on the website. You can go there and have a glimpse of those resources. Also, one has the opportunity to attend professional development events like this we are having just now. And most importantly, you can have a glimpse of wonderful job opportunities and other opportunities. On a daily basis, they are updating their database and new opportunities are being uploaded on the website. So I request you all to visit teacherr.in to have a complete and a wonderful experience. And as I see, the clock is ticking 4 o'clock. And without taking much time, I would now introduce our today's presenter. Today, we have a very special guest who is joining us from UAE. He is Sydney Michael Atkins. Sydney Michael Atkins currently serves as Vice Principal of GEMS, our own English high school in Al Ain OOL. He has served in many capacities such as academic coordinator and senior supervisor at GEMS Modern Academy in Dubai, where he was also the IBDP EE coordinator and examiner for the IB examinations. In 2014, Sydney was certified as a leading edge digital educator by the US based company CUEQ after pursuing a rigorous year-long course based on the National Education Technology Plan, Common Sense, Common Core State Standards, and the ISTE standards, formerly known as the NETS for teachers. He also had a degree in communication from the Trinity College, London. In the year 2016, Sydney was listed as a reading, writing, and social media influencer by Clear.com, a UK based influencer database. And in true millennium spirit, Sydney is an avid social media user where he promotes his passion for world travel, literature, awareness about rare diseases, and educational leadership. And I would also like to apprise with you all that Sydney was recently part of a tweet chat by EdChat India, where he took up the topic project based learning. We are honored to have you, Sydney, with us, and over to you. Sydney, sir, are you there?
Kaushal, there's some slight technical issue. I request all the teachers to just be patient for 2 to 3 minutes. We're just
Yes.
adding Mr. Sydney, so
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
some technical issue. Yeah.
So, as Varun said, that there's a technical glitch, so we request you to stay calm.
So until Mr. Sydney joins, I think we can do a quick question answer session about the previous assignments. If you got any other doubts, you can ask. Me and Kaushal will be there to clear it out.
This is Monica. I just needed the grouping practice once again on Sway. That's not actually coming up in my case. Hello? 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 Kaushal, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just needed some more, knowledge about grouping. I am not able to group things on Sway and how to play. Then it doesn't come as ma'am told.
So we have got Mr. Sydney here. Ma'am, we'll just clear your doubt at the end of the session. I think Kaushal is also not here. So we will clear it after the end of the session, Monica ma'am. Other teachers, if
Yeah,
there's
no worries. Thanks.
yeah, yeah. Mr. Sydney, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, great. All right. So we just gave you an introduction. Over to you, Mr. Sydney. You can begin sharing your screen.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just give me 1 second and I'll be with you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, great. So, firstly, good afternoon, and thank you for bearing with us as we try to figure out the technical difficulties that we were facing. You know, it's not lost on me the irony of this scenario. Here I am waiting to talk to you about the strategic use of technology, and for the last 10 minutes, technology failed us. So, just goes to show that I think as educators, adaptability is perhaps more important than digital literacy skills in our scenario. But thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to the team for having me and hosting me because every time I prepare for a webinar, it gives me a chance to reflect on my own practice and how I feel about my own role as an educator and the stuff that we do on an everyday basis that we take so much for granted. It gives you pause to think about the purpose behind it also. Thank you for joining me for this webinar today, and I hope that you take away something meaningful from it. Like the title suggests, I won't be spending too much time on actual technology, but I will be reflecting more on a strategic use of technology and why we should use technology and a little bit about how we should go about using that technology. So any questions that you might have that don't get answered via this webinar and the Q&A after, you can see my Twitter and Instagram handle and my blog details below the slide there. Please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to get back to you on anything that you have to talk about. So let's get started. I think it's important for me to preface this webinar by saying, I'm not here to add to the hype about technology. I'm not here to add to the hype about social media and its importance in the 21st century classroom. I think we all know that. I think we all appreciate it. I think we all understand the value of upscaling our own skills and allowing children the opportunity to navigate their own learning experience using technology as well. So my job here is not really to convince you that technology is important. I think that's the status quo. I think we all agree on it being important. But I want to talk about a little bit on why it's so important and why is learning socially using technology so important. So EdTech Review, I'm sure you've all heard of it, did a survey some years ago, and I think this was about 3 or 4 years ago, looking at students above the age of 11. And they found that 90% of students above the age of 11 have some sort of social media presence. Now, if you think about it, most of the social media sites that we have, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or any of those, require students to be at least 18 years of age to have them, or be under their parents' supervision if they do. And it just goes to show how much the generation that we teach has adapted to technology and made it part of their everyday existence. So 90% children use some kind of online technology that is social in nature. And I'm emphasizing the social element here because that's really the crux of why technology is making its way into the classroom. In addition to the digital literacy skills, it's the social element that we have to consider a little more carefully. So using tech and using ed tech tools allows for children to collaborate in a social way in an online environment. So if you look at that third point, that's such an important one. Today, students like to document everything. They like to express everything that they're feeling. I'm a millennial myself, and I live on social media. I'm either on Instagram or Twitter or on my blog at any point in the day. And it's so important to me to be able to generate thinking and responses to my experiences on an online forum because I found comfort in people who I've perhaps never met, agreeing or disagreeing or being able to give me insight into my experience on an everyday basis just by being online. So when you bring that element of social learning, and we all know that learning is a social process, but when you bring that technology element into it and you give it to children who are intuitively able to use it, it enhances the learning experience for them in a way that you and I perhaps never experienced in our educational landscape. For the teachers watching this, and perhaps there are more than teachers watching this, but for the teachers watching this, technology is also a great tool for differentiation. And we know the stress that administration and senior managers put on differentiation. And looking at the Indian context, differentiation is not part of our culture. It's not part of our upbringing. I never got placed in a group or received a differentiated worksheet while I was studying math. If I had received that kind of attention, perhaps my math skills today would be way better than they are. So differentiation is not part of our skill set intuitively as Indian teachers, but I think it's an important skill to imbibe and strengthen. And using tech to leverage its potential and use it for differentiation becomes such an important part of everything that we do in our classrooms. And of course, statistics say that learning socially, whether it's in groups or pairs or online, enhances the learning experience and helps children retain their learning. So that's a little bit about why we do technology and web tools and social tools in the classroom. And I think all of us are in agreement that there is a lot of value to be held in that. But having said that, I think sometimes we get so inundated and overwhelmed by all the technology talk that we hear that we have to consider how to go about it. And I think that's one of the reasons we are looking at why it's so important. So why do we use web tools? We know that it's important for our own professional development. We know it's important for collaboration of children's work. We know our children are intuitively tech savvy. I'm sure we've all seen videos on social media of little babies playing with iPads. They just come with the innate ability to be able to use the technology that sometimes we struggle with. Technology like web tools allows us to hit high on Bloom's taxonomy because we are giving children the opportunity to do research. We give children the opportunity to create something with that learning. So hitting high on Bloom's is a priority for all of us teachers. And I think technology, when used purposefully and meaningfully, allows us to leverage high quality teaching practices because we are catering to learning needs that children may not necessarily always have a chance to experience. And of course, it gives children the element of fun. And I think that's so important to bring back to our classrooms, because in a culture that is testing and over testing children, perhaps in a culture that is looking at everything from well-being to mindfulness to not overburdening the child, to there's so many things and so many priorities for us as teachers. And yet the children, in my experience, remember the fun that they had in the classroom, the enjoyment in the learning, because that's when authentic learning happens. It's when the experience is pleasurable, when the experience is fun, that's when the learning is deeper as well. And so tools and web tools, of course, allow us to bring an element of fun to a generation that is intuitively used to using technology in their everyday lives. So I want to spend a little time on talking about how do I choose a web tool. There's no dearth of web tools around. Every one of us has friends and colleagues who are throwing names of web tools at us all the time. And I'm conscious of the fact that we have all kinds of teachers who are younger and more in tune with this generation, teachers who are millennials. I'm one of them. And I also work alongside teachers who've been in this profession for the last 20 and 20 plus years. And for them to make that adaptation and to quickly cross over to using technology can sometimes be overwhelming and intimidating. So what are some concerns, or what are some questions we should ask ourselves or concern ourselves with at the time of choosing the right web tool is what I want to dwell on very briefly. So the important thing to do is see if you can try it yourself and if it works easily for you. I've tried a lot of tools in the past. Many of them I gave up within a couple of months of trying them out. I'll give you an example. In 2014, I experimented with Minecraft and use of Minecraft to teach English language writing skills. And I will tell you this, and I can share the blog and the information with you later if anyone is interested. The experience was incredible for the children because intuitively, the children were able to use Minecraft to do the task that I assigned them, and the learning outcome, of course, was met. But one of the reasons I stepped away from Minecraft is because I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get around using it myself or making time to master my own skills in Minecraft. And at some point, it became a burden for me to even assign a task on Minecraft if I didn't understand it well enough myself. And so it's important to filter out the information that you are receiving constantly about web tools and look at what are the ones that can really make an impact for your teaching and of course on the learning as well. And is it easy for me to handle as a teacher? Because we've got to keep in mind our own sense of ease is important too. A question I ask myself is, will students benefit from using this tool? And I'm a big proponent of the golden circle theory by Simon Sinek. So if you've heard of that or if you read up on it, you'll know that Simon Sinek always puts the why at the center of any process or any structure of agreement that he's looking at. And when you consider the why, it's important to ask yourself, why am I using this tool? But it's also important to ask yourself, how does this benefit the child? Will the child benefit? And if it doesn't, then why am I using it in the first place? Because there's a tendency to use technology for the sake of using technology. And I think because of the pressure teachers and educators are under, they want to use technology so they are compliant with expectations. But the use of technology for the sake of using technology doesn't accomplish anything. And it's important to consider how to use the technology meaningfully and productively. This is a simple but very practical one, and it's about children being able to use it effectively. If, for example, you use a tool that is highly attractive to a child visually, perhaps their attention can be deterred from what you're actually trying to achieve. So looking at age appropriateness of tools, looking at if it takes time to require, if there are too many steps in the process, is an important part of choosing the right web tool. So one of the tools I'm going to share with you today is something that I use more in the high school, and I encourage teachers to use more in high school than it is in the primary or middle, because it's an easier tool for senior children to handle, and it's not as attractive as a Kahoot or something that will encourage younger learners. So it's important to ask, is this going to add benefit to the experience, or is it going to take away from the experience? But finally, the purpose. Why am I using this? Does it help me as a teacher, or does it enhance the learning experience for the child, is an important question to ask. I'm going to leave that on the screen just for a couple of minutes because I don't want to waste too much time on this. But it's important for all teachers and educators to clearly define the distinguishing line between just using technology and integrating technology with a purposeful vision in mind. So using technology is easy. We can use technology for anything really within the classroom because tech solutions are there for so much of what we do. But integrating technology purposefully in a way that makes it beneficial to us as teachers, more for the students, and of course for the skills that they are developing, is an important distinction to have. And we could do an entire webinar on just this, determining what is the difference between the use of technology versus the integration of technology. So I'm not going to go into that, but when I share the slides with you and when you get this by email, perhaps you can look at this a little more deeply and reflect on it with your colleagues and with your teams to look at the distinction between the two approaches to using technology. So let's move to the actual technology. Let's move to the actual web tools that I'm sure you're hoping to take away from this. So the first tech tool that I want to share with you is called Desmos. And Desmos is one of my favorite tools. And remember, when I talked about purpose, I'll be completely selfish and say the purpose for using Desmos was to make life easy for me. So online testing is an important part of classrooms. I think it helps with AFLs as well. And if we look at the blended learning and distance learning scenarios that we are currently in, you know, the importance of those AFL questions and those formative assessments used through technology has become so much more valid today than it was perhaps 3 months ago. So Desmos is essentially an online test generator, and you can build simple tests from your laptop, from your desktop, from your mobile phone in under 10 minutes with a range of options. So they're ideal for AFLs and formative assessments. They're ideal for end of class plenaries when you want to gain information and insight on whether children have learned, whether there are learning gaps in the system, or if something has to be retaught. It's a great tool for that. And finally, it comes with a range of question types that you can go through from, I think there's text answers, there's fill in the blanks, choose the right answer, simple formats like that help you choose the Desmos test. You get to design the test. You can use a password system to keep it secret and keep it secure till the time that you are ready to administer the test. And then finally, the best part is you can download the results as a CSV file and stick them in your teacher planners or handbooks, and you have your record of the assessment being conducted. You have the data for what the assessment looks like at the end of it all, and it's a great tool to use in a classroom. So I'm not going to go into how Desmos can be created. It's very intuitive, and you can build it in under 10 minutes very, very easily. At the end of this webinar, if there's some time left and we've had our question answers as well, if anybody would like to go through the process of actually building a Desmos test, I'm happy to take you through that process at the end of this webinar. So that's Desmos. It's the first web tool that I wanted to share with you, more because teachers are always looking for solutions to things that take time. And for me, corrections always took time. And it's something that I didn't like much as a teacher. I still don't enjoy corrections as an administrator. And every time I tell teachers about corrections, I feel a pang of guilt because I know in my heart I hate sometimes doing all the corrections. So this was an easy solution for me to do formative assessments and have the data that I need and also the insight that I needed to reteach or remediate any of the gaps in learning that I discovered through the test. So that is test. I'm going to move on to another favorite, and that is Voicethread. Now, with so much work taking place in the cloud, Voicethread really is one of my favorite all-time web tools to use in the classroom. As you can see on your screen, it encourages conversation. It encourages discussion. It encourages debate. It encourages reflection and the ability for teachers to give feedback and children to give each other feedback is exceptional. And it's such a simple tool that can be used in a variety of ways. So I'm going to minimize my PowerPoint for a second, and I'm going to take you to the actual Voicethread page and walk you through the process. So this is what the Voicethread page essentially looks like. Sorry, can somebody just say yes if you can see the screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is essentially what the Voicethread dashboard looks like. There's a pre-step required, which is to register using either your Facebook, Google, or email ID. And that pre-step is required of teachers as well as students. So I always recommend that children sign in using a school email ID if it is available in your schools, or a parent's email ID, so that you have no safeguarding issues involved here. So there's a pre-step. Teachers and students need to register for a Voicethread account. But Voicethread is free, it's limited, I'll tell you that in a second. But essentially what it allows you to do is upload any picture or document from your computer or your gallery. You can see here you have the option of upload from computer, upload from your gallery or media sources, depending on what device you're using. You can audio record directly into the website. So everything I'm saying now can be recorded directly into the website as a voice recording. It can also be recorded as a video. So if I want to put a video in rather than a voice, I can do that. You can put a link. Basically, any format goes. So what you do is you upload, and I'm going to try and upload something, see if I can upload a picture. Okay.
No, your screen is not visible at all. Your screen is not visible.
Sorry, I just asked if everyone could see it. Is it visible now?
Just one plus sign.
Yes, sir, it is quite visible.
Okay.
Yes, Mr.
Thank
Sydney. So to all the participants
Thank
who are not able to view the screen, you can go to our YouTube channel to view the live stream. So I think there's a problem with your internet connection. Apologies. Please go ahead, Mr. Sydney. Thank you.
Okay. So as you can see, I just uploaded a picture, and it just happens to be a screenshot of a conversation I was having with the team behind the scenes because the tech was not working. But essentially, once you've uploaded whatever media you want to upload, whether it's a Word document or a PowerPoint or an image or a link, anything goes, you can set the instruction for what you would like children to do with this. So this is the video, the image. Sorry, this is the only image I had. But essentially, if you hit comment, you can add a text instruction. You can add a voice instruction by adding a voice recording. So hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this webinar. This is my instruction recording, and that can go online. You can also add a video recording, or you can upload any other document which has instructions attached to it. But when you have done so, and when you have done that, all you have to do is really share this with your students, and they have whatever you've uploaded. So I have a sample one ready for you. This is the image that I uploaded to my Voicethread page. It was simply a slide from a PowerPoint that I had with the word propaganda on it, because we were looking at propaganda in our IB English literature class. And as you can see, the four options that were available to me to add instructions are also available to all the students who are viewing the slide or the Word document or the video that you've uploaded. So I've given them an instruction. I've asked them to upload a video, a 2 to 3 minute video talking about propaganda techniques, propaganda tools, and how they are used in the media. And I've also asked them to ensure that they comment on each other's videos or voice notes or text responses once they have responded. So I'm going to play very quickly some of the responses I got, and you'll get a sense of what is happening. So that's Neeraj. Neeraj is at UCLA right now. And that's Neeraj because Neeraj was one of the braver students of the class. And I enjoyed Neeraj's risk-taking attitude. So he was always happy to put himself out there, make videos. In fact, he's just made a short film that has become very famous in the US. So Neeraj was very comfortable responding to the stimulus in the video format. Little later, there's another video from Sana. Sana, so Sana is studying theater in the UK now and studying filmmaking in the UK. So again, somebody who was very confident, somebody who was very willing to come in front of the camera and respond using video. But other children who may or may not be as excited about video are allowed the option of responding through text as well. And the other option that, as I showed you here, was voice. So children have the ability now to respond through video, through voice, or through text. And that helps you immediately differentiate to the learning styles and the learner types within your classroom. I know differentiation is a deeper topic, and there's a lot more that we can talk about on the quality of differentiation and how we see differentiation. But what I mean here is that essentially different learner types. And one of the reasons I am a huge proponent of Voicethread is because I found that in addition to making it fun, in fact, I shared this a video with one of my students named Mustafa today, and I told him I'm going to be using this. And he wrote back to me and he said, when I use the tool is when I first realized I was going to have fun in the rest of your classes for that year. So it gives the children a sense of motivation to look forward to participating in tasks like this. But one of the reasons I love it the most is that I realize that reticent children, children who don't really speak up in class, children who are not the first to raise their hand and answer questions, were really the ones who were responding most through Voicethread, because they had the safety and security of being at home or comfortable environment and responding in a format that was best for them. The other reason I really like using Voicethread is how we get peer-to-peer encouragement and peer-to-peer reflection and peer assessment in the system as well. So it's visible, it's evidence of children actually reviewing work other children have done, and it's a great tool to have to showcase engagement in your classroom. So that is Voicethread. And I hope that at the end of this webinar, some of you will take time to navigate your way around Voicethread. Believe me, it's really, really simple to do. I would like to draw one caveat though. Because Voicethread is a free tool, you're only allowed up to 4 uploads. So you can do 4 of these assignments before it will limit your use of the platform. So if you're the kind of teacher who would like to do this more often, then you'd have to delete the older ones from your system. The other alternate is writing directly to Voicethread and getting a organizational license where the limit is taken away from the school and teachers have free access to continue using Voicethread without any limitations. And then if you do that, and if you get a license from the company, believe me, I'm not plugging this. I'm not getting any money to promote the company. But if in doing so, you can also use your school official email IDs, and you don't have to give any personal information to the company when you register for Voicethread. So that's Voicethread, and I hope you will give it a try. The next tool I want to talk about is something that I discovered very recently from Twitter, actually. I was in touch with a teacher in the UK who happens to be a web enthusiast and a tech enthusiast, and she has created what she calls the classroom screen. And I'm just going to switch to that tab right now. So the reason I'm sharing this now is because across the world, teachers are using technology and websites and their devices now and sharing their screens like I am sharing my screen with you. And you can share a boring screen where children are not really engaged in the content, or you can share a screen that has features and exciting elements that children will be enjoying while they are experiencing their learning. So classroom screen is an incredible way to do simple things, and it brings together a whole lot of other tools under one umbrella. So I'm sure if you're like any teacher who uses technology, you'll use Webtools, you use timers, you use traffic lights, you use sticky notes, you use calendar apps, you use all those apps. And sometimes we have to click on and off and switch between browsers and switch between tabs to do those things. But this app is so great, and it's a web-based app. So it brings together all these features under one umbrella. So as you can see here, you have the background option, which if you click, you can switch to a background that is default within the system, or you can upload a background that you want to customize for your class. So if you have a class photograph, if you have a picture of your school, a logo of your school, maybe that's something that you want to add, you can customize your background or use one of the many default backgrounds that are already available there. If you want to generate, for example, excitement, the random name generator is great. So one of the reasons I love random name generators is instead of picking out on a child and calling them by name, and they feel sometimes victimized because they say, why me? The random name generator picks the name for you randomly. So it's almost like a lottery, and children watch the screen because they don't know if it's going to be them that is called out or not. And you can either enter the text by typing in the names, or you can copy paste from a Word document or an Excel sheet that you already have available to you, and it will randomize the names automatically for you. So it brings in the random name generator. One of the other tools that I used to use for the same purpose was the wheel spin. And the wheel spin is another web tool that does the same thing, but Classroom Screen brings it under one umbrella. If you want to assign tasks to groups, you have a dice option here. So for example, if you want children, after they've collaborated in groups, to make presentations, and children have the tendency in saying, not me now, not our group now, we'll go last, we'll go first. The dice option is a nice way to encourage them to come up if they are called. So that's also, you can build in a voice note or a sound note based on whatever you're doing. You can add instructions here that the children can hear as an audio piece, and it also has the ability to make a QR code. So if you want to take them to a video or a pre-prepared document or resource, you can just add or generate your own QR codes within the system itself. And like that, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you have all sorts of things. I can see this working really well in younger, lower classes like primary and KG, where you can give them assign work for them based on what you want them to do. So you have the silence option where you can tell them, okay, now it's quiet time. You have the whisper option if you want them to share with a peer, ask a question, those kind of scenarios. You can ask a neighbor. You can give them time to ask a neighbor and discuss within groups. And of course, you have the discussion time where they're all collaborating and working together. Similarly, you have the traffic light signals, where I'm sure many teachers use this in different ways, and you can use this for different purposes. So that's also inbuilt. You have the timer inbuilt if you want the digital timer. You also have a clock and a calendar built in. Teachers, really, it's not about the technology. It's not about the features, because every app, every tool has different features. And this is perhaps the crux of what I want to leave you with. It's more about what you do with the technology. If you look at this one in particular, it has 10 features. And using all 10 features at the same time in the same class may not be the best approach. But when you plan to use it specifically for a specific purpose, for example, with Desmos, I explained to you the purpose was to make it easy for me to generate data, for me to have automatic correction, for children to have the ability to answer AFL type questions in a less laborious way. So it's just ticking a couple of options and they're done with the test. So the purpose is very clearly laid out for a tool like Desmos. In a tool like Voicethread, the purpose is very different. The purpose is engagement, it's peer-to-peer interaction, it's collaboration, it's differentiation. And so I use I use Voicethread only when it aligns with the purpose that I want to set out for myself. Similarly, for this one, classroom screen, you have to generate your understanding of why you want to use it and if it works for you. When I discovered this, I immediately intuitively thought of lower classes, primary and middle, because I don't see this as being very engaging for senior students. Perhaps I might be wrong and you might be able to work this for senior students as well. But defining the purpose becomes very, very important. I'm looking at the time and I'm conscious of the fact that we have to keep some time, buffer time for question answers as well. But I have one last tool to show you before I sum it up and go back to my PowerPoint slides. So the last tool I want to show you is not really a tool, but it's social media. It's called English Companion Ning, and I'll share this with you again at the end of the session. But essentially what English Companion is Facebook for teachers. And I have been a member of English Companion since 2012 when I discovered it. And really, it brings together English teachers from every possible corner of the globe that you can think of under one umbrella. It might sound nerdy because it's teachers talking about teaching and reading and writing and all of those things. But it has been one of my greatest crutches as a teacher. Every time, sorry, I think I got disconnected there for a second. Can I be heard right now?
Yes, your screen and is visible
Okay.
and you're audible.
Thank you. So as I was saying, it's been one of my greatest helps in the last couple of years. So within English Companion Ning, you have access to ready-made lesson plans for English. You have access to resources and multimedia. You have access to case studies. You have access to PowerPoints. There's a reading club for teachers to discuss books and texts. There's a library that you can access. It has social elements like chats and other features that are found on Facebook. You can share content and videos and websites. It's basically Facebook for teachers, and it's perhaps one of the most useful tools that I've discovered in my teaching career. You know, teachers often have the misconception that when they come for PDs on web tools, that the web tools are all about how to enhance the learning of the child. But there are a lot of web tools out there that enhance the learning of the teachers and the professional growth of the professionals, the teachers themselves. And English Companion has been one of those tools for me. So I encourage you to sign up for English Companion and check out the amazing stuff that is available on there. There's one catch though. So for every lesson plan you download, you've got to upload one of your own as well. So in doing so, it keeps the organic nature of the website alive. People not only are giving resources, but they are receiving resources from other people as well. And so I encourage you to also share, perhaps look at your organization's intellectual property rules and regulations and share carefully, but it's important to give back to the community as much as you take from it. So those are the 4 tools that I thought I'd share with you today, and I'll go very quickly back. Sorry. So I just want to sum up right where I began. I'm not here to glorify technology. I am a huge proponent of technology. I am very passionate about its potential to revolutionize teaching learning. I understand that in the world that we live in and the current ecosystem of our schools, digital literacy is perhaps key to their future success. And so I'm not here to question, is it a good thing or a bad thing, or if it has more harm than positives. I think technology is here for good, and teachers need to upscale themselves because, and this is a quote I love, I use it often, technology will never replace the teacher. But teachers who are able to successfully use technology might at some point replace teachers who are not able to use technology. And so technology is not a threat, but it's something we need to embrace and take cognizance of, but keeping the purpose behind it at the heart of it all. I just want to re-emphasize Simon Sinek's golden circle theory always puts the why at the center. So before you use a web tool, before you are forced into using a web tool, always question the why. Is this beneficial to me? Is there value in this for me? Then it's something I will consider. Is there value in it for children? Then it's something I must consider. And if there's no value, or if you see that a tool has more potential to cause disruption than actual, deeper learning, then perhaps that's a tool that you need to put aside for another day and give it some more time for you to consider. So it's never about the technology. It's always about the teaching. It's always about the pedagogy, and it's always about the teacher's vision for what they want to accomplish. So tools are just tools. It all boils down to how you are able to utilize them. So thank you very much. I'll be around for some questions, and then we'll take it from there.
Yes. So thank you so much, Mr. Sydney. It was a fantastic insight into all these interesting tools. I myself do not know English Companion. I would definitely love to check it out. So teachers, if you have any questions, please post your questions in the chat box. If you are not able to view the chat box, what you can possibly do is that you can raise your hand and we would call out your name.
Of these resources would mean dramatic reducing the costs. So this cost dimension and this optimization of the resources.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question at all. There was some feedback coming through.
To the controls that I mentioned, which is not easy. There is a extremely important area that in the last 15 years has been achieved.
Sorry, Varun, I am not able to hear this question at all.
Okay. I'll just read out a couple of questions that have been posted in the chat box. So Miss Monica is asking, is TestMouse free to use?
Absolutely free to use, and I have never encountered a limitation on it as of now. I've been using it for a couple of years. What I would recommend is that you save your password and whatever information you keep as a document as well, so that you don't have to keep making them over. So the tendency is, so for example, if I'm teaching Merchant of Venice, I might be teaching Merchant of Venice in class 9A and 9B and 9C. You don't have to make them over and over. You can just assign them differently. Very, very simple. So yes, TestMouse is free.
Great. So Ms. Harmeet is asking, what about special needs students? How do you suggest differentiation for them?
So that's a great question, actually. And technology can be leveraged in many ways for special needs. But again, it boils down to what kind of differentiation are you looking at. If you're looking at differentiation of just content, then there you don't need technology for that. There are adaptive tools on practically every tool that you have available to us today. But if you were to give me, perhaps offline, or if you get in touch with me, a specific type of special need, I could link you with the appropriate tool if there are any. So for example, if it's a reading need, if it's somebody who is dyslexic, or if a child who has a reading problem or reading years below their chronological age, then there are tools like Lexplore, for example, which is a great artificial intelligence reading adaptability tool that can be used for that. So it really depends on the need of the child, and it depends on what kind of differentiation you're looking at. So if you get in touch with me or through the team here, I'll be happy to help you with whatever information I can.
Okay, that's great. So Mrs. Sunita Reddy is asking, can we have a quick demo on TestMoz now? Will it be possible?
Sure. Okay, I'll just share my screen again. So everybody can see that?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you basically just type in testmoz.com into your browser and go directly to build a test. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And you type in your name. So for example, that's my test name. I'll put my own name as my password. It's important to keep your password secure and don't share it with the children. So the reason you have the password is twofold. One, so that you are the only person who can edit the test. And two, when the test is live, children can only start the test when you have shared the password with them. So Merchant of Venice, that's my password. I create the test. Once I've started creating the test, I go to adding the questions. So you choose your format. So you want multiple choice, true or false, match the following, fill in the blank. So I've just given the fill in the blank option there. Okay, you type in your question. Okay, and you basically save as many questions as you want. Once you finish saving all your questions, all you have to do, and you can go up to 15 questions in multiple formats, so you don't have to stick to one particular format. But once you've saved all your questions, you go to publish, and when you're ready to publish, you publish and you're given a special TestMoz link. This is the link that you share with your students. So if you're using an LMS, then you can paste your link directly into the LMS. If you're just projecting it in your classroom, then you can use your projector. If you have some sort of an email system or you use any apps to send out mass information, you can send out the test from there. And at the end of it all, once the children have taken the test by putting in the password and answering the questions, you can generate the results directly. Of course, no one has taken the test now, but when you can generate the results directly, it gives you an idea of how many children got the answers right, how many children got the answers wrong, error frequency, which question got the most right answers, which question got the most incorrect answers. And if you can remedy that gap in learning immediately, then that's great. And then finally, you have the option of downloading the results as a CSV or Excel file or a Word document. So that's basically it, under 10 minutes. And if you already have worksheets with question answers on them, it's just a matter of copy pasting them, and you have a digital test that is self-correcting, which is the most important part. So that's TestMoz.
Great. Thank you so much. So there's a question from IES principal. Mr. You can unmute yourself and ask the
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Varun, Mr. Sydney. Thank you very much. My only question to you is, in the test you generate, where is the correction? How is the answers to be incorporated?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
In the test that you generate, the answer for that question, can that be inbuilt? Will it correct on its own?
Yes, sorry, I should have mentioned that. With the question, you're expected to put in the answer as well. Then it becomes self-correcting. So you have to put in the answers with the question.
Can you please show that that facility?
There you go. So when you add a possible answer, the option is right there, and you save it. Then when the children use it, when the children attempt it, the answer will be self-corrected because it's already in the system.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question, because it's important to note that if you don't put in the answer, then the self-correction will not happen.
Okay, so there's a question from Mrs. Tanushree Datta. Can a child appear twice with different names on test mass?
Tanushree, I am amazed by that question. So the first time I used Tesmos, I had the biggest problem, and I'm so glad you asked that question. So yes, children can attempt the question multiple times. They can change the answer. So every test result sheet comes with a timestamp. So you can take the first answer as the only answer and disregard anything else. So it comes with a timestamp, and it gives you an indication of when the child attempted it and how often the child attempted it if it was done multiple times.
Mr. Sydney, thanks a lot, because I face this problem with Google Forms. Thank you so much.
Yes, but it comes with a timestamp, so it's important. Also, it's rung another bell for me. Another issue that you might face, and you can preempt by talking about it, is the same name repeated in the class. So you might have 3 Rahuls in the class. So when you ask them to enter their name, you must ensure that you say, please enter your full name, so that you have the right indicator for who the responses are from. Again, this I learned only through experience. I didn't think of it when I designed my first test, but through the use of it, the question that you raised about multiple answers as well as multiple names repeating is something that I learned from using it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
So there's a question from Mrs. Najma Jahara. Is there a test limit of 50 questions per test, or because the limit on test mass is about 100 participants and 50 questions? So is there any limit? Can you please throw some light on that?
I have seen that you can go up to 20 questions. Again, Tesmos comes in a free version as well as a licensed version. So it's important that if you're using the free version, you understand that it will come with some limitations. So I have only used the free version, and I've always faced the idea that it ends at 15 or 20. It doesn't take more than that. But if your school or your organization decides to invest in the licensed version, you will have many more features available to you. Having said that, I have predominantly used it for formative assessment and AFLs. And in an AFL or formative assessment kind of scenario, you don't really need to go beyond 5 or 10 questions to understand if children have learned. Which brings me back to the point on purpose. Why am I using the tool? If I'm using the tool for a summative kind of assessment where there's 100 questions, then it may not be the best tool to use, because children can get answers right by fluke, and it doesn't necessarily show that they have learned something in the bargain. But if you're using it for formative style of assessment, like I explained, then I think 10 or 15 questions perhaps is more than enough to give you the kind of information that you want from it.
Great. So there's a question from Mrs. Monica. It reads something like, how is TestMoss better than Google or Microsoft Forms? And can we choose the multiple questions, multiple type of questions there?
So I haven't used Microsoft Forms right up till now. When we began using Microsoft Teams is when I used Microsoft Forms. In many ways, the features are similar. I just find that it's easier for me to design a Desmos and give it out to children because they are more familiar with it, but the features are essentially the same. At the time when I started using Desmos, I didn't have Microsoft Forms to use. I've only discovered them recently. So really, it's up to you and what you're comfortable with. It comes down to the point I raised in the very beginning about your comfort level with a specific tool and the children's comfort level. So because my students have been using Desmos since 2012, we've just gone with it because it gives you everything that you need or require. If there's a tool that does the same or better, then it might be worth switching over to. But essentially, the features are the same.
Okay. Can the student see the result in test marks?
Great question. So the children get instant feedback via a tick or cross across every question. So if I got question A right, I'd see a green tick, and if I got question B wrong, I'd see a red cross. So instant feedback to children on what they've got right or wrong in their learning is available through Desmos, which is not on Microsoft Forms unless you plan it that way.
Okay, so there's a question from Ms. Namrata. It reads, how to judge essay type questions on test marks?
That's a good question, but I've never really used Desmos for essay type questions. And again, I'm circling back to the purpose point. If your purpose is to assess something summatively through an essay type response, then I would say Desmos is not the best tool to do it because you're looking for multiple things and not just factual recall answers that perhaps Desmos is better at assessing. So it comes down to purpose, and if your purpose is summative kind of assessment with essay type or longish answers, then it may not be the best. Having said that, Desmos does have a text input format for the questions. And if you're looking for a 2-line or a 3-line response or a small paragraph perhaps, then it's important to have your rubric ready for exactly what you are looking for. Because Desmos won't correct grammar and spelling and accuracy of language. It's basically facts. So if you have a rubric for points or specific keywords that you're looking for, then you can input those keywords as what you're looking for in your answers. But having said that, I don't think it's the best tool for a summative kind of assessment. It works more for AFLs and formative assessment.
Right. So there's a question from Ms. Shweta Raturi. Do we have an option of importing worksheets made in PDF on test marks?
No, we don't. It takes some work to actually put in the questions and the answers. So you can't upload a file if that's what you're asking. No. I'm not sure if you can in the licensed version. I've never used it, but perhaps that's a little bit of research that both you and I will have to do.
Ms. Harmeet, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for such enriching conversations that are happening. I am really overwhelmed and awed by the tools that you have explained over here for differential and blended learning inside the classroom. You did mention a tool for reading disabilities for a certain child. I was just looking, since I belong to CBSE, so they are more into summative answers and doing that kind of stuff. So I was just wondering, how in this in this virtual classroom scenario, is there anything that you could suggest that we could reach out to parents, or some strategy how to train the students to write those summative answers, how to bring that participation inside our classroom, because that is a huge challenge for my teachers, or some tools that you could refer, some websites, some resources. I don't know, I'm really at the task over here.
Can I ask you to repeat the question again, please?
is that my team, I have around 25 students in my senior school who are special needs students with different varying abilities. Few have dyslexia, other have ADHD, some have autism. So the point is that in this virtual classroom scenario, you did mention one tool about the reading disabilities that we could probably use for. And us being a CBSE school, there are certain provisions that we have to make sure that they are able to write the answers also. But here, when we cannot actually reach out to them, the parents are not having enough hindsight how to involve themselves in this kind of a teaching. So could you help out somewhere like that? I mean, you've shared so many good resources. If you could just share something like that, it would be really helpful.
So, thank you. Off the top of my head, I will be honest to say I don't really have the best response to this question at the moment. I could get back to you on that. But I think what if I've understood your question carefully and clearly enough, what you mean is how can we, what tools can we, or what help can we provide to parents and students by way of tools that can assist them in writing, specifically when they have learning needs. Is that the crux of your question?
Yes, nearly that, nearly
Okay.
that. Or
Okay.
how can they also, how can comprehension be an easy thing? For example, we have things like immersive readers, we have things like text to speech, but again, those are very restricted tools that we can make use of. At the end of the day, CBSE expects that we write good summative answers. And how do I help those special needs students from such a way out? I am unable to figure it out. So I was just looking for some inspiration.
So I'll be a little practical here. Twofold answer. Number one, at the end of the day, those children are going to give an exam that will involve zero technology, because that's just how our system works. So we
Yes.
can help them with all the technology leading up to the exam, but at the time of giving the examination, they still have to write the answer themselves. So beyond the technology here, I would suggest educating students and parents um, on the available accessibility features for writing within whatever system or platform you are using. So I know, for example, all Microsoft apps have accessibility features in them. All Apple products have accessibility features within them. So perhaps it's worth considering how to educate students on using those accessibility features. And more than that, I think a lot of students know these features intuitively if they're using them, but perhaps encouraging parents to look for accessibility features. Most devices now come designed so that they are able to be used by children or individuals with different needs. So I think educating parents and students on the available features of whatever platform you're using is the first step. But beyond that, I think getting them to move away from over reliance on technology is important, because at the end of the day, they will still do a paper or an exam that has zero technology. So I would suggest for such scenarios, go back to the old tried and tested methods of getting them to write, getting them to email answers, correcting and returning to them. Sorry, I know this is not the best answer, and I know it perhaps doesn't answer your question 100%, but I'm just conscious of the fact that despite the technology, it may not amount to anything when they finally have to give an exam that is completely paper and pen based.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a question on the YouTube live. So this is being asked by Ms. Santhya. Can we add pictures or clip arts in the test created for visual questioning?
Does she mean Tesmos?
Yes,
In
on
test.
test mode, yes.
No, you can't add any pictures or images to Tesmos. At least in the free version, you cannot.
So there's a question from Mrs. Manjushri Das. How to assign marks to each question on test mass?
Just beside the answer option, there's a point system. So you just add 1 or 2 or whatever you want to add. It's right there.
Okay, great. So there's a question from Mr. Kaushal. It reads, can we copy the test and change it for different purposes? No, I was in reuser. Yeah.
You want to reuse the same test? Is that the question? Can we
Yes.
reuse the same test? Yes. So essentially, once you've
Question-
downloaded the CS,
Please, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Yeah, please.
So essentially, once you've downloaded that entire CSV file, you can clear the test of all the information of the data that is stored. You still have your login, you still have your password. So it's just a matter of generating a new link and giving it out to a new class. So you can reuse the test, yes.
That's great. That's great. Are there any other questions of educators? We can just take probably 2 last questions if there are any. So there's a question from Ms. Liza. It reads, I'm trying to register for TestMass, but it's asking me to pay and sign up for 1 year subscription. How do I check out the free version?
So Liza, I think you perhaps clicked the option where you have to pay for the license. There are 2 options. One is create a test for free, and the other one is the one with the license. Let me see if I can pull that up for you. So when you go to the home page, if you click directly on build a test, it should take you directly to actual building a test for free.
So here's a question from Najma Jahara. Could you please suggest some apps similar to Voicethread for primary or KG students?
So I think Padlet has some of the similar features. Lino has similar features. You can add post-its one on top, digital post-its one on top of the other, and it brings in other formats such as video and voice. Lino and Padlet are relatively new compared to Voicethread, which I discovered in 2012, but was available perhaps before that. But Lino and Padlet also have some similar features, and I've seen a lot of our primary children are very, very happy to use both of those. I will say though that just visually, because it's a wall, the wall format is a little cumbersome for me. Voicethread is quite neatly laid out, and perhaps it's just my OCD, but I prefer the layout of the screen on Voicethread as opposed to Padlet or Lino. But again, it comes down to what you're comfortable with.
That's great. So there's one last question that we'll take and we'll end the Q&A session. So it reads something from the academic manager. I want to know some mind map making apps. Okay.
I don't know any mind map mapping apps on the top of my head, but if you're on Twitter and you tweet me in about 10 minutes, I could get you some. Sorry, I don't know any off the top of my head, yes.
Okay. That's great. So, Mr. Sydney, it's been a fantastic session. I thank you from all of us at Teacherr and Chat India. It's been a brilliant session. We have learned so much in the last 1.5 hours, and getting exposed to all these brilliant tools. I'm sure we are going to take back all these tools and test upon them. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be a part of this session, and thank you so much for taking your time and your efforts in bringing back to the educator community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that it's something meaningful for the people who listened in. Thank you very much.
So, dear teachers, you can follow Mr. Sydney on Twitter at the rate of Sydney DXP. Kaushal, could you please share the Twitter slide? All right. So I'm just typing it down here in the chat box. You can follow Mr. Sydney here. And it's been a brilliant session, Mr. Sydney. Thank you so much once again. And dear teachers, please fill the feedback form as well. if you fill the feedback form, we'll be able to send you today's presentation and today's recording. I'm sharing the.
Varun sir,
Yes.
I have a question. What is the last date for submission of the weekend webinar that you did?
The previous session, July 7th.
Yeah, the Kiran ma'am, July 7th.
Yes, July 7th.
And they have to be uploaded on the teacher.net, teacher.in website just the way the previous one was done?
Correct, exactly, yes.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, teachers, for joining us. Have a great day. Stay safe.